Sespe Sutula. Sespe Sutula runs the Sespe Creek Collective out of Southern California. As it's California, delivery is a thing, which Sespe discusses, but she also discusses the vast difference between Southern California and Northern California, or any other active cannabis economy for that matter. Welcome to Cannabis Economy. I'm your host, Seth Adler. Check us out on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, our new YouTube channel with the handle Can Economy. That's two N's in the word economy. While Sespe and SoCal are making their way out of the shadows through the new MRSA regulations, they are slowly but surely making their way into the sun-grown light. Sespe Sutula, Sespe Creek Collective. And is that Sespe Sutula from Sespe Creek?
Yes, this is Sespe from Sespe Creek.
So, Sespe, thank you so much for giving us some time. Give us the background on Sespe Creek, just in case we're not from Southern California.
Sure. Well, I joined this collective. I'm approaching my 5-year anniversary this month, and the collective really started out in Fillmore in Ventura County as just a small cultivation operation. And the two brothers that founded it originally sort of decided that there was a need in the county to provide delivery service as well. And so just as they were sort of getting into that and starting to expand in that area, I received a delivery myself as a patient and just kind of struck up a conversation with one of the founders, and it sort of went from there. I dipped my toe into the cultivation side of things for a brief moment before I realized that my skill set was really more in the business, operations, logistics, marketing kind of side of getting the delivery side up and running. So I jumped on, and about a year and a half or so later, I was running the show myself. The original founders had decided for personal reasons at different times to step out. And so that's where things are now. I've got a nice solid team that's helping the collective just really stay afloat at this point in California. But really, I think we're moving forward in some positive and fun directions as well.
Yeah, you and I have talked about the fact that things are different than they were, which is fantastic, and we'll get into that. Just want to make sure that we get a good sense of the collective. There is the grow you mentioned. There is the delivery. Is there a storefront, or is it exclusively delivery?
No storefronts in Ventura County. They're completely prohibited. And we actually, I've had different gardens at different points, but for the past, I would say 3 years, we do not do any cultivation ourselves. We exclusively rely on our member cultivators to provide medicine for the collective. So I just decided it was better for us to focus on the service and the education side of it. Then we just had so many cultivation problems, farm issues. So yeah, we're really just delivery service, but we provide, I would say, above and beyond what most dispensaries and services provide as far as patient education and guidance on medication selection and variety. I would say we carry quite a large selection, especially of CBD-rich medicine in Southern California, which can sometimes be difficult for patients to find.
That's fantastic. And I guess when you had mentioned that you realized that the business end of thing was a better fit for you, you also meant for the greater collective, that we can depend on the great growers that you have there in California to get you the product so that you can deliver it to the patients, as you say, right?
Absolutely. I mean, cultivation is so tricky, and it's funny to hear regulators talk about people just grow your own, just grow your own. It's really difficult to grow your own.
Exactly.
People take that for granted.
Yeah.
I leave it to the experts.
Yeah, it's an art. There's certainly science in it, but it is certainly an art. You started to get into what you're offering and, the variety and the ailments that you're speaking to. Describe the patient set. Let's get a better sense of who you're helping. What I would imagine ailments run the gamut, but what are some that you specifically and explicitly serve or service?
Sure. Well, we definitely cater to an older patient base where our average patient is probably about 45 or 50 years old. And we get a lot of people with chronic pain, injuries, insomnia is a big one, and anxiety. But we definitely see regular cancer patients, people with advanced stages or just early stages cancer, different neuropathies. It truly is the gamut. And I'm not, because I'm a little bit farther away from we call them phone tenders, our phone operators that answer the phone and really help guide patients. We don't always ask conditions. Patients are definitely encouraged to tell us their medical conditions if they need help, but not everybody does. So
Right.
I would say it definitely runs the gamut, but it's interesting to see the wide variety of people that come to us looking for help. Yeah.
Yeah, and Southern California certainly isn't out of the shadows as much as Northern California is. But that is why we're talking. Give us a sense of what is happening on the ground as far as you, the conversations that you're having, to which puts you in a mindset to be okay with doing an interview.
Well, it's tricky. It's a delicate balance every day between, maintaining discretion and, trying to just stay off of the radar while we work things out with the city. I'm in direct contact regularly with some of our different city council members across the county, and our county board of supervisors is meeting on Tuesday, March 22nd, to discuss how they want to move forward with a stakeholder sort of process to get input. So I just got that staff report today. I was reading that this morning, and it's really just every day. It's like, who can I have a conversation with to push this issue a little bit further? We're reaching out to senior services groups, senior councils and stuff throughout the cities. And also outreaching to Latinos. We're really just putting it all out there and trying to get everybody educated on what this really means in our community, and try to just continually fight the stigma, the misinformation, and push the issue that patients deserve access to medicine. And it's time to really get with the program. And the state is doing the work, and we need to kind of fall in line and embrace the regulations that we've been asking the state to create for many years.
And you're talking about AB 266. This is in the wake of AB 266, and that basically outlines for businesses to interact with their counties and cities as you are doing. How different is that for you, and how open are folks to these conversations at the at the county and city level?
We're finding a small degree of openness. Not everybody is anxious to talk to us, and but enough people are. So we are. I feel like I'm cautiously optimistic that we're making some small progress. So yes, the MMRSA is a set of 3 bills, including AB 266, that was passed late last year, and that it really just creates a full set of regulations for the cannabis industry in California. But really, it allows a huge degree of local control to remain in effect. So cities and counties have chosen to embrace the option of banning everything instead of putting the time into creating some kind of more permissive ordinance that allows these businesses to get a local license, because if they can't get the local license, they will not be able to get a state license. And right now, how it is until all these regulations are completely in effect, is that you can have a state license and sort of get by without the local license based on the collective cooperative business model. There's a lot of gray sort of in that area, and that's kind of where we've been forced to remain since we started as a collective, just because the county kind of acknowledges that we're a legitimate collective and that we follow the rules, and that they're not making us a law enforcement priority as they are with other compliant collectives. But the fact is, we don't have the proper licensing at the local level to be able to qualify for a state license once California starts issuing those licenses.
Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what you're working on. You know, we talked to Amanda Ryman from DPA about MRSA. You know, I always use AB 266 as a crutch, but it is that greater legislation, certainly. And it's good to hear that you're in conversation, and it's good to hear that you're making headway. Baby steps are still steps. It also, you mentioned, you know, conversations with the community, all of a sudden kind of opening up those conversations. How are those going?
Those are going well. Sometimes we're preaching to the choir a little bit. We kind of invite our own patients to attend workshops and get more information. But I think it really gets trickled out in the community. I mean, our local media has been covering the stories more. I've created with another person. She and I have jointly kind of. Let me start over because I don't want to say the wrong thing here. I've been working with a woman who created an organization at the end of last year in response to these regulations called the Ventura County Cannabis Alliance. And she and I have been working together to really draw out patients in the community, even if they're not patients themselves, but supporters of medical cannabis rights, to kind of just sign up and band together and pay attention and register to vote and spread the word that cannabis is not the scourge in our communities that some people would have us believe, and that it's really important medicine. So those outreach efforts are successful. They're not as, I would say, they're limited to what we have the capacity to do. I mean, it's not the sole focus of our collective. We still really have to just make the deliveries every day at the end of the day. But when we do get a chance, it's always really well received, and we know we're helping people, even if it's just 3 people in the audience. Those 3 people got their eyes open that day.
You know, this is exactly why I was so excited to talk to you, because you're talking about Southern California, and it sounds like you're talking about Utah. You know, it sounds like you're talking about a place that wouldn't be so readily, you know, good to go with legal cannabis, even medical. So, okay, great. Obviously, you've never done this before because it's never been done. What's your background, though? Where are you? SoCal from the beginning? Where are you from originally?
No, I've only been in California. This will be almost 8 years for me. I moved from the East Coast. I've moved around a little bit in my life, just kind of following different opportunities around. But I was living outside of D.C. in Northern Virginia when I moved to California. And prior to that, I'd spent some time in Athens, Georgia, and Chicago, and Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Baltimore.
Oh, wow.
So
why were you moving around so much, may I ask?
Yeah, of course. Well, the first couple moves in my life were really my parents moving around just for their jobs. I was actually born in Montana and left when I was 3. My parents got jobs teaching in Baltimore, so that's where we moved. And I basically grew up there. I moved for high school to Athens, Georgia, because my mom got a better job. She finished her PhD and went off to teach at UGA, and Dad had some opportunities there too. So from there, I just needed to get out of the South. I wasn't really happy living in Georgia, to be totally honest. I mean, Athens was a fun, cool town, but I knew culturally it wasn't totally what I was going to be happy with. And I went off to school in Chicago. I had family there, so the secrets of the U.S. I think it's a really fun city, a lot of fun stuff going on, and just lived there briefly, and then I got engaged and moved for that to Cleveland. I mean, this is my long life story. So just different reasons, and then jobs, you know. I got that really brought me here, and I can't say I regret it. It's been great. I've gotten a lot out of my different experiences and different. This was just where I would have unfettered access, and it's definitely not been the case. So,
Right.
but I'm happy to be part of the struggle to move it forward. You know, I definitely have just kind of made peace with the fact that it's my calling. This plant has special purpose in the world, and I feel it's my duty to help, you know, bring it into the public focus in a much more positive way.
Yeah, and there certainly is a light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, you know, based on the fact that we're simply having this conversation. If your parents were academics, though, you know, and by the way, it's either military or academia that brings people around the country like that, or world for that matter. But if that was what they did, what did you go to school to study, and what did you come out with? You mentioned jobs. What kind of jobs did you have before getting into cannabis?
Well, it's interesting. Yeah, my parents are academics, but they're also, my mom was in pharmacy for a while. So I have that sort of upbringing as well. It's been interesting to see kind of the pharmaceutical industry side of it. She was on academic pharmacy side as well as in the industry side for a time, but she's retired now. And my family is all cannabis enthusiasts, just like me. So I definitely come by it honestly. But, you know, I did some time in academia myself. I majored in psychology, and my first job was at a lab coding facial expressions and looking at emotion and cognition kind of research. And it was really interesting, but it was a little too monotonous for me on a daily basis. It was a lot of coding and just kind of, it became a little mind, you know, emotional facial expressions and body language. Those are, I think, skills that can benefit you no matter where you are.
Yeah. And it sounds like fascinating work. It sounds like you were kind of in the weeds of coding. But what did you learn? What are some basic things that you can tell us about facial expression and body behavior? What are tricks that you know that maybe not everybody else does?
Well, yeah, it was kind of interesting because this was really in the news many years ago, you know, how you can tell people are lying from facial expressions. And one of my favorite things is learning the difference between genuine and artificial smiles. When people are genuinely happy, there are involuntary, I think it's your orbicularis oculi, I can't remember the name of the muscle that will raise when your cheek raises. But if you're not genuinely smiling, if you're smiling to please someone socially or to act like you're okay with what's going on, then that muscle does not lift, and you can kind of tell that person's really just smiling to be pleasant, not because they are enjoying the situation. Just little things like that.
Yeah, that's huge. Just little things like that is the difference between truth and falseness, I guess.
It is, yeah.
Amazing.
And also, one of the other things I learned was that Peekaboo is a universal game.
No matter where you are in the world, everybody knows that?
Which was kind of fascinating. They're just things that innately we as humans understand and do without necessarily being aware or cognizant.
How did you explicitly find that out? Where were you that you happened upon that information? That was
at the same lab in Pittsburgh doing emotion and cognition research. We had a lot of child development people there, and that was coding. One of the things I coded was facial expressions between mothers and their infants playing peekaboo. So when the mother or father is hidden from the baby, baby might be, you know, excited to see, oh my gosh, mom's hidden, when she's going to come out, or the baby might be freaked out, depending on that baby's temperament and a whole host of other variables. So that was, and in that context, it came up that Peekaboo was actually a universal game, and across cultures, that's a way that parents use to engage their children in those kind of emotional challenges that help you regulate your emotions later in life.
That's fascinating. That's like truly fascinating. I wish I would have known this when my niece and nephew were younger than they are. They're 5 and 2, or now my nephew's going to be 3. So I guess there's other skills that I can look for, especially
Yeah.
the cheek muscles now, right? You know?
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing is it was really interesting, and it was fun to be kind of scientific mode for a while, but yeah, to be a research scientist, I really give those people credit, because in the lab day to day just running the same protocols over and over and over, because you need data sets. So it becomes
Right.
very monotonous very quickly, and that's really kind of where I fell out of it. But the people I worked with were just top notch, really exciting, interesting stuff. The one professor I was working for was an adjunct with Carnegie Mellon Robotics Institute, so they were doing a lot of that early facial detection software coding that they use now in, like, you know, criminal tracking and stuff like that. So yeah, it was exciting to kind of be on the early wave of that technology being developed.
Amazing. And, you know, we talked about your kind of transition into the collective. I would imagine that you really were using those skills early on because, you know, 6 years ago or whatever you said when you joined, you really couldn't talk out loud about what you were doing to even those in the community. We covered that earlier. How much did you depend on kind of winks and nods as far as just communicating what your business did and making sure to service patients and making sure to get the right, you know, medicine from the right grows? How much of that was depending on kind of nonverbal communication?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of that on a patient interaction level when you're the ones kind of, in the early days, I was definitely making deliveries myself and answering the phone and having to, like, suss out whether this person is a legitimate patient or not. And yeah, those skills always come into play, just when you're interacting with somebody in kind of unfamiliar territory if you don't know them. For me, I would say those skills help me more keep my cool under duress, like if I got, say, a random knock on the door from a city fire inspector. So those are I would say it's helped me kind of flow through situations that might get me in trouble a little bit more easily.
Well, take us. Do you mind taking us through what you mean by that? So there's the knock, knock, knock on the door. You open the door. Then what are you looking for in that? I'm not asking you about what's happening in the dialogue. I'm asking what you're looking for in the nonverbal communication. How are you communicating that way or picking up on communication in that instance?
Well, it's always it's tricky, and I'm not sure I'm an expert, but in my limited experience when I've had those kind of random knocks on the door, I really quickly have to ascertain, are they there because they suspect I'm doing something illegal, or are they there just because it's a random check and they're there to check my license and verify that there's no electrical hazards. Like, is this truly random, or am I in trouble? And
Right.
so if I can really ascertain that and just do my best to act like I have nothing to hide, while at the same time kind of wondering what their purpose is, I'm definitely going to just try to get all their questions answered as quickly as possible and get them out the door. But it hasn't happened too often. I think it's more the anxiety that it will happen. It's happened once or twice before, and those were truly random knocks on the door. It's funny. One time it was this, and I won't mention which specific city this was, but one of the cities in our county, I did get a random fire inspection, and when the guy knocked on the door, he knew who I was, even though my business license says one thing, and that's kind of how I play in this gray zone. He knew who I was because I had made a delivery to him about a year prior. So he was actually a registered already. We passed that inspection, and we just kind of had a little handshake about it. And I don't think he's employed there anymore. So I doubt this story would get anybody in trouble. It is empowering and promising. So I say the medical potential really behind the plant is
Yeah.
what continues. Okay, I don't have to be in my head worried about all my insecurities right now. I can think about other things and enjoy life and be in the moment. That's what that song.
Well, this is Jacob Dylan, so Bob Dylan's son, his band, right?
Yes.
Okay,
And
I don't know the song though.
And it features Mick Jones from The Clash on drums, I believe, and it's a great song. It was kind
Wait
of
a
like
second. Mick Jones on drums from The Clash.
Yeah.
He's a guitarist.
Oh, yeah. You know what? I get those confused. Don't quote me on... Mick Jones is in the song. I can't remember which instrument he's playing in there. But,
or maybe I'm wrong. I could be wrong.
Wallflowers. It's good to just kind of help remind yourself you can keep going, and it's just important to keep going.
It is important to just keep going. That's exactly what you've been doing, and that's exactly what's going to get us to be where we need to be. Chelsea.